All right, welcome everybody to another exciting episode of Under the Dome. I'm your host, Alan Orrick, here with my partner, Sean Williams. I know the show says Ain't There No More. Originally, we were going to just talk strictly about the Washington Redskins because I'm running out of stuff to talk about until the season starts up. But
wait before we go further, I've had someone ask me already tonight, what song is that?
Ain't There No More?
Yeah.
Okay, you have to be from New Orleans first off.
Well, there you go.
Benny Grunch and the Bunch took
that sounds like something you get a shot for.
Yeah, they took a jingle, Christmas jingle, Jingle Bells, and wrote a song about things in New Orleans that ain't there no more. D.H. Holmes, Godshaw, Schwegmans, all these local establishments that ain't there no more. And a lot of the ones, the big department stores that were on Canal Street had been replaced by hotels. So the lyrics go like, just hotels, more on the way. Mr. Bingo can't get a seat at the Carlton Ritz because he can't reach the buffet. Hey, just hotels, it's on there. Benny Grunch and the Bunch ain't there anymore. They play it every Christmas. And it's a popular song because he's naming all these old places. And people go, ain't there no more. And Schwegmans, ain't there no more. Kriegers,
so there was your history moment for tonight. We're fun and educational.
Hey, it's New Orleans. I got to make a reference to New Orleans. So
always.
And because we're talking about the Washington Redskins, well, I thought that's what we were going to talk mostly about. The Redskins moniker now ain't there no more. It's like the Titans, the old New York Titans. That name is gone, and the Houston Oilers.
The old Houston, old Dallas Texans.
The old Dallas Texans. Yep. So if you want me to sing the Houston Oilers song, I'm not going to do it. But the old Love You Blue era, I can sing that too.
Oilers. Houston Oilers. Houston Oilers #1.
I can just picture.
I lived 2 hours away from Houston back then. Oh, we lost Alan.
Oh, we lost Alan. Uh-oh.
Okay, well, I'm gonna.
That's my
step
fault.
in.
That's my
fault.
fault.
We got him back.
Yeah,
fast.
He's like the Phantom, man. He comes and goes, and
I hit my mouse. And I hit I right clicked instead of left clicked, and it kicked me out. So.
Okay, well, I'm going to get us started. I'm going to pay the bills. Thank you guys for joining us on Under the Dome. We have a very, very, very special guest. I'm not for certain. I think maybe this man was the first guest that we had. No, I stand corrected.
Scott Alexander.
Yeah, Scott Alexander, because I did the show in the parking lot of Chick-fil-A, squatted down in my car with my iPad. Yeah. But anyway, he's a very good friend of this show. And I do know that the second guest appearance that I made all those days ago, whenever I was covering the Saints for PFS, the second guest appearance that I made on someone else's podcast was with this man right here. He's a wealth of football knowledge, especially about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He is a huge Jameis Winston fan, but we're going to welcome him in anyway. But most of all, I feel very, very fortunate and blessed to call this man one of the closest friends that I've made in this business. And y'all, please make welcome Mr. Eugene Thomas from the Buck What You Heard podcast.
Thank you, guys. That's awesome. This has been. I really don't know how to describe this offseason. To me, the offseason is probably the worst part of the NFL. When you look at the NFL as a whole, the offseason is the worst because there's no action. You're looking at everything on paper. You're kind of guessing, well, we don't know. We think we've got all the pieces here to do something. Everybody's 0-0, and your expectations go through the roof until you start playing. So here we are now, and we're in unprecedented times. Hopefully all the listeners out here are being safe and, taking care of the family, taking care of each other, which is what we should be doing here. And hopefully everybody is staying safe in this time with this virus. We don't know where this is going to head, but hopefully everybody is.
Absolutely. Boy, that every time you get a text, it sounds like I've just guessed the wrong answer on Family Feud.
One of these days, I'm going to turn the camera around and show you what holds my camera up, and it'll make a lot more sense.
I got you.
But at this point, we're just going to kind of roll, and then I get blacked out. Well, okay.
Oh, you're there.
I still see you.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Every time I get a Facebook Messenger, it just like pops up.
Oh, there we go.
I got you.
It's hell being popular, man.
I hear you.
It's my cross to bear.
Oh Lord, it's hard to be humble when you're perfect in every way.
Sang by Mac Davis, who was the quarterback on the North Dallas Bulls.
Correct.
We can bring everything back to football.
There we go.
Okay. I want to
go ahead.
If you don't mind, I want to take lead on this. I want to ask. I have been dying to get Gene on here so that I could ask him his take on the new New England Buccaneers.
Hey, I've been watching the background the whole time. I see Bruce the Pirate back there in your background on the old creamsicle Buccaneers helmet.
Yes, it is.
Yes. Okay.
That was my favorite Tampa Bay uniform. back in the days of Doug Williams.
Yeah.
Who coincidentally played his college ball on the street.
You know, being a Bucks fan has been a labor of love. You know, I mean, you go back to the 80s and the 90s, and we're talking about the big sombrero and the metal bleachers, and you know, it's 90 something degrees outside, and you know, you're there and you burn your legs on those metal bleachers. I can remember us bringing lunch. You know, we had bring a cooler into the stadium, and you know, it was an event basically. And you look at where we've progressed to now, and it's you know, a lot of things that I miss that are gone. I wish they could bring back, but I understand for security purposes they don't. But yeah, it's been an interesting time for me. I personally did not like Tom Brady. I mean, at all, other than the Atlanta game. With the exception of the Atlanta game,
I think anyone
and you know, somebody had to remind me, Gene, you were cheering for New England when they made that comeback against
No. See, that's the common misconception. We were not cheering for New England. We were cheering against Atlanta. There's a difference there. There's a wide gap there.
And you know what? Just the look on Matt Ryan's face when he was walking off the field. I know this isn't about Atlanta, but I'm making this about Atlanta because I hate him that much. The look on Matt Ryan's face. I couldn't be mad. I couldn't stay mad at Tom Brady. You've got Tom Brady. Here's a guy that's won all these Super Bowls. He's done all these things, and you know, he went from being, what was he, a 5th round pick, to being a guy that, you know, everybody mentions in the same breath as greatness. Kind of like, you know, with your quarterback, where you talk about all the accolades that this guy has. And, you know, when the Chargers cast him off like he wasn't going to be anything, and what he ended up doing for the city of New Orleans, I mean, it's just incredible. And Saints Nation. So to be able to have a quarterback like that, a great football mind, a high football IQ, somebody that can come in and help this team to get to that next level, to start getting to the playoffs potentially. And you know, a lot of the moves that they made in the offseason made sense. And I think this is one of the bigger moves that you almost had to make this move. Just Absolutely. You know, considering the direction that the team was going and the level of talent that you have on the offensive side of the ball, you almost had to make that move or pull the trigger on a quarterback like this.
Yeah. Well, and with that kind of move, I know the expectations among Tampa fans mostly are going to be, hey, this is it. Now we're going all the way. You know, we've got the quarterback to get us there. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, and we're going to talk about this when we talk about what happened to your previous quarterback, new quarterbacks in Bruce Arians' system have been known to throw a lot of interceptions,
Understood.
along for a lot of yards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You've got a 43-year-old Tom Brady who doesn't have really that arm strength to grip it and rip it like, Jameis Winston did, like Carson Palmer did, and other quarterbacks in Arians' system.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, or do you foresee, if we play a regular season, that the trend with Arians' offense is going to continue where Brady throws a career number of interceptions? Or is Arians going to customize this offense to fit what Tom Brady likes to do best?
I feel like the latter. I don't think Tom Brady would have came to Tampa if he would have been hamstrung, or not hamstrung, but basically pigeonholed into this offense with Byron Leftwich calling the plays. I think there has, in my mind, you're the greatest quarterback of all times. You could have gone to San Diego. You could have gone to the Colts. You could have gone anywhere, but he decided to come to Tampa. I'm sure I would be willing to bet my life that there were some provisions made to where Tom Brady would have some say-so in how this offense was ran.
Sure.
Just because, when you look at Bruce Arians' offense, they do not utilize the tight end very much. Even in Arizona, they never really utilized the tight end as much as what they could have. In Tampa, you've got two quality tight ends to go along with your wide receivers, and a running game that's slowly but surely coming along. So I would expect to see Tom Brady utilize the tight ends a lot more, just because that's what his comfort level is being able to utilize those guys.
I agree, because I think for two reasons. I think number one, Brady's not very mobile.
No.
And the Bucs offensive line.
It's hard to be mobile when you're out on the field with a walker.
Yeah.
But the Bucs offensive line hasn't always been the best. It struggled in pass protection.
Right.
So I expected a lot more, or I should say a lot more, two tight end formations where you have max protect and maybe have your tight ends run seam routes, which is what Cameron Brate and
O.J. Howard.
O.J. Howard, but also if he can hold together for more than a game, Gronkowski, like to run those seam routes. So, you can block or pass out of that formation. So I think that's going to be the real challenge is how much is Arians willing to concede what he likes to do, which is just push the ball downfield with a vertical attack, versus what Brady is more comfortable doing, which is more check down, crossing route, just move the ball down the field and just keep moving the chains.
I think what you're going to see is the ball coming out a lot faster. And as you guys know, I've always been a huge Jameis Winston fan, always have been. There were times that I just watched him play, gone back and watched game film, and he holds onto the ball too long at times. And I realized that maybe his opportunities aren't there, when they should be. Or I've seen times where he's waited too long and the window closes and then he puts the ball out there. And I've seen those opportunities, kind of get slipped away. So I think you're looking at a totally different quarterback in Tom Brady. I watched him last year, and I believe if he had a higher level of offensive talent, they would have been a lot more successful than where they were.
Any level of offensive talent.
Yeah.
Brady was on an island out there.
Yeah. So, when you look at the level of talent that he has surrounding him right now, I think he's in a better position. You'll see the ball get out a lot faster. And I think this is going to benefit the offensive line if he can get that ball out and get it gone and, not have to worry about getting put on his butt, throughout the game. That's going to be the key right there, is keeping him upright.
I think that what you're going to see in that Tampa Bay, and maybe Gene, you can speak more to this than I can. I think what you're going to see is the combination of several factors coming together. Number one, you've got this unprecedented offseason where as Alan and I have talked about on here several times, you're looking at the very real possibility that you may have 4 weeks of training camp before you start the season. So you're going to have to simplify. You've got an elder statesman quarterback. But I mean, if there's ever any quarterback that you're going to bring into your offense and into your system, and you're going to tailor make that offense to suit him and his strengths, it would have to be Tom Brady.
Absolutely. Another good example. I mean, and I'm glad you brought this up. I look at the Carolina Panthers. You got Teddy Bridgewater coming in, and I just don't see. I mean, I like Teddy Bridgewater. I like his game. I don't see him being able to adjust the same way as a Tom Brady can adjust to a new team. Because you look at what he has to work with versus what Tom Brady's walking into, and Tom Brady's just in in an ideal situation, and I think that he does have the trust of his coaches. So I think that factors into it a lot. As moving forward as to what he will be able to do.
I think the thing for Carolina that's going to be the biggest factor in the Teddy Bridgewater regime is going to be the fact that not only do you have a new quote unquote franchise quarterback that you're bringing in, but also you got a brand new coach, a new system, new everything. So you're basically looking at a team that's in complete rebuild mode. Teddy Bridgewater, and I could very easily be mistaken and off base with this. Excuse me. But I look at Bridgewater in Carolina as being, as his name said, he's a bridge to whoever's next.
You look at him more like a placeholder then for
yes, absolutely,
the next incoming quarterback.
Well, and to be perfectly fair and honest, that's the way that I saw him in New Orleans as well. And as we saw as the season played out last year, Bridgewater he managed the game fantastically, brought those 6 wins in, and you can't argue success. But you have to factor in
a lot of that was coaching. A lot of that was coaching.
Yeah,
a lot of that was scheme.
Absolutely. You scheme to the strengths of your quarterback. Yeah. And I never looked at Teddy Bridgewater. And there again, in all fairness, all the uproar and hullabaloo about Taysom Hill, I don't look at either of those guys and see them as the future of this franchise at the quarterback position.
Taysom Hill is an offensive weapon. He's an offensive weapon. He's not a quarterback. He's an offensive weapon. Trying to explain that to people I'm not even going to go there because it's just frustrating. If you're not following the New Orleans Saints, if you're not a Saints fan, if you're not watching the news, if you're not watching game film, don't try to speak on Taysom Hill. Please don't, because you sound like an idiot. Taysom Hill is an offensive weapon. He is an offensive weapon. When you bring him in as a defensive coordinator's nightmare, because you have to adjust your whole defense for him being on the field. And that's
you have to account for him. You have to account for him no matter where he is on that field.
Right. Yeah. And
I tuned into Buck What You Heard one night, and they got to talking about Taysom, and I sit there and laugh.
and I was shaking my head. I'm like, you guys, please don't try to explain this. Just stop.
I could see that. I could see that vein poking out in Gene's forehead.
And all props to Sean Payton and to Mickey Loomis. And you guys know I have a love-hate relationship with Mickey Loomis because he's a division rival general manager, but the guy's a genius.
He is.
Every year you guys are in salary cap hell, and he, for some reason, some way, gets a Emmanuel Sanders to come to New Orleans. I mean, Malcolm Jenkins, you get a Malcolm Jenkins, DJ Swearinger, guys like this that you wouldn't think that there was cap room enough to get these guys in here, but here you have a general manager working his magic. So as much as I love him, I hate him because he's a division rival, and you guys are very fortunate to have that GM.
I always wonder how people react to what Mickey Loomis does, because we call it Loomis magic. Because
I cry real tears. I drink real beers.
I know people go, oh, they're going to lose this guy, they're going to lose this guy, and they're going to lose. Who the hell did they just sign? How did they get it? Where did that money come from? They signed him for how much? Yeah.
That is exactly it right there. Because when I saw Emmanuel Sanders, I saw it. I got a text message, and I looked at it, and I looked at it again, and I was like, oh, again. So I just put my phone down and just went back to what I was doing, because there's no understanding what this guy does. The way he works with the cap is he's genius. Just what he does and the level of talent that he does bring in to New Orleans you guys have to be happy to have that.
Well, I think it's also worth mentioning the job that for lack of a better way of putting it, the maturation process of Sean Payton's coaching style, because what you saw him do with Teddy Bridgewater last year, where he stripped it down, he simplified it, he used what Bridgewater did well, he protected him from what he didn't do. You wouldn't have seen that 5 years ago. You'd have just seen him get thrown on the field and grip it and rip it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the elephant in the room, Jameis Winston, because if you're saying that, Teddy Bridgewater is a placeholder, and you say that, Taysom Hill obviously is an offensive weapon, not so much a quarterback, then that leaves us with Teddy Bridgewater. Do you think that Sean Payton can fix Jameis Winston?
I think he can. When you and I want you to look at the broad picture here. Jameis Winston in his career did not lead the Bucs in interceptions. Number one, I'm going to put that out there. Number two, he broke every single important passing record in Buccaneers history in under 5 years. Under 5 years. And we're talking about the fact that he had injuries. We're talking about the suspensions that were games taken away from him, and he still put up those kind of numbers the way he did. His level of maturity has just he's done so much. He's meant so much for the community once he's gotten settled down, and he's a father, and he's taking everything seriously. He's actually taking his football career seriously. I think the fact that he came to New Orleans, he knows what Sean Payton is capable of doing. He wants to get better. He wants, and this is really weird, where he could have gone somewhere else. He decided to go to New Orleans for below minimum, and just learn his craft, take a step back. He was a starter for all these years, and he's taken a step back in order to be a backup in order to get better. That should tell you everything you need to know about his mentality and what he's trying to do, for his NFL career. So, people could talk about interceptions and turnovers. There are so many memorable plays that Jameis Winston had in his career as a Buccaneer. It's just, it's something that you can kind of look forward to. Just, I'm really curious to see what Sean Payton's able to do. I missed that. I missed that.
Oh, it was just one of our viewers saying that he got updates when we got Emmanuel Sanders. Everyone's saying Saints and Emmanuel Sanders agreed to a 2-year deal, and I said, what? So yeah.
The only knock, I've had my criticism of Winston over his career, and I won't sugarcoat that. But my knocks on Winston have never been because of his talent or lack thereof. Jameis Winston's biggest opponent that he's had in his career has been his decision making. Now, there's a lot of things that go into that. Inferior coaching at this level will not teach you to make the right decisions, because this is not Florida State football. This is not Auburn football. This ain't LSU football. This is professional football. Yeah. And I say that to say this: all my criticisms of Jameis Winston have never been about his talent or ability. It's been about his decision making, and there is probably no better coach in the NFL right now when it comes to molding a quarterback's decision-making process than Sean Payton. And I'm really curious to see, I would, it may sound like kind of a cop-out, but I'm going to drop that in Jameis's backyard. How he absorbs what Payton is willing to impart on him, that's going to determine just exactly how long he stays in New Orleans.
Yeah. But again, I think this is an ideal opportunity for him. You're talking about a very good offensive mind, and just being able to learn from him, being able to learn from a first ballot Hall of Famer, just being able to sit behind a first ballot Hall of Famer and improve your craft is huge. I think another thing that really struck me about Jameis was his uh, inability to read defenses. Coming up to the line, pre-snap reads. I saw some struggles in that area from his rookie year up until he left. There were times where you saw that, and again, these are all coachable things, but got to have it from the neck up. Once you have that, I think you're a world beater, and he's got the physical talent.
Well,
you've been in the league long enough. You know how the game is played. You know how to prepare for the game.
But again, when Alan had made mention of, the inferior coaching plays a huge proponent in all this.
No. What I'm saying is that can only benefit Jameis.
Yeah.
Now, you know what goes into preparing for a season. You know what goes into being an effective quarterback. Mm-hmm. So absorb what you can and move on, man.
Yeah.
You've got a golden opportunity.
Yeah.
One of the things I was getting ready to mention was that I watched several videos breaking down Jameis Winston's mechanics. And there was one really good one right after we signed him. I saw it. It basically said that his biggest struggle was when his pre-snap read did not match to the defense he actually saw once the play started.
Exactly.
If you show, let's just say, for example, you show cover 2, and he thinks, okay, I got a sail route concept. I've got multiple receivers who are going to flood the zone. I should, in a cover 2, this guy should break clear, or I should get a good matchup with a linebacker, a receiver and a linebacker. I should get that. And what they do is, once the ball snapped, they shift to cover 1 or cover 3 or something. And
especially cover 3.
Yes. And Winston throws the ball, anticipating cover 2, and it's cover 3, and it goes right to a defender. And you in the stands going, what in the hell was that? And that's it's that adjustment he cannot make from the time the ball is snapped to it leaves his hand.
Now,
I heard Tampa Bay.
I'm going to put this out here too. And if you guys get a chance to go back, I don't know how much game film you guys watch. Watch the route running. There are rounded there. And again, this is my team, and I'm very critical of my team, just like I would be anybody else. I've seen so many times where you've seen rounded routes. I've seen times where wide receivers cut off their routes. I've seen times where they don't complete their routes. I've seen guys on the other end of the ball that aren't going to get the ball, that don't sell what they need to do. And so, it's pretty obvious where the ball is going. So go ahead.
Wasn't it Deshaun Jackson that played there too?
Oh my God.
That's the biggest waste of money that Tampa Bay has ever invested in. I watched games, and I'm talking about looking at it from a TV viewer's perspective, where you could see him run out there and not even finish a route.
Right.
That's an insult to professional
football. And it's really interesting because you guys remember Michael Clayton from LSU, and he was the wide receiver for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He had a video. He put out a video, and he talked about this, and he actually showed examples of what he was talking about, how these guys were not running crisp routes. You run routes to win games, This route depends on you, because Jameis Winston is throwing somebody open. He's throwing to a position on the field. He's not throwing to a receiver.
Yeah.
And
that's the difference between playing pro ball and college ball.
Right.
You're playing against a defensive backfield that's some of the best in the world, not one or two really talented guys.
Right. And again, but if that works, if your wide receiver is doing what he's supposed to, he's running that clean route, running that crisp route, Michael Thomas and all of his slants. I mean, boom, he's open. No, I'm sorry that Sean caught what I was saying. but all joking aside, just the receivers. The one thing that I am impressed with is the receivers, regardless of who they are, when they come to New Orleans, they do run clean routes. Alvin Kamara runs clean routes when he gets the opportunity to.
Certainly
and
does.
That's something that you have to appreciate. That's kind of going back to Tom Brady a little bit. Just I'll let you get to your point here. This is something I hope he can instill in these wide receivers. Is it's important to run these clean routes because it's going to make the difference at some point in the game.
Well, there's no way that you can undervalue the amount of leadership that Brady is going to bring to this team. Because I haven't been following your personnel moves as religiously as I do ours, obviously, but it's my impression that you're dealing with a relatively young team now.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say there's one name that's the reason why the receivers run the routes they run. His name is Curtis Johnson. He's the receivers coach for the Saints, and he came from the U, and he coached. He coached. What's the Andre Johnson? He coached Michael Irvin. He coached
the playmaker.
A lot of
the pretender.
A lot of great receivers. But if you look, the Saints bring in receivers that are not divas or people like give me the ball kind of guys, because the offense is predicated on. Yeah, you're not going to get the ball in this play, but you may get the ball. You may get opportunities later on in the game when we run the same routes, except this time the ball's coming to you. But the other 3 times, you're a decoy, and you've got to run the decoy route because your job is to pull that safety. Yes.
You got to get Michael's stats up before you're going to get some.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I can remember it wasn't that long ago before there was a Michael Thomas, when there was, I guess, probably before Michael Thomas, really the closest thing that the Saints had to a preeminent receiver, as much as it pains me to say this, and Alan will understand what I mean. The closest thing that the Saints had to a preeminent receiver was that guy whose name shall be not mentioned on here. Jimmy Graham.
Emmy Am. We're not saying his name, but
yeah. Well, I mean, Marcus Colston. Marcus Colston is a great example.
Kenny Stills
was here for 1 year.
No, Kenny Stills was here for two or three years.
He was a good receiver. He really was, and
he just had no work ethic.
Underrated receiver.
He just had no work ethic. He did not like to participate in off-season programs. He didn't like to practice. He
was the kind of guy.
He was a diva.
Yeah.
He was the Allen Iverson of football.
He was the kind of guy who was not going to run. He wasn't going to run a route cleanly and sell it the way he was supposed to if the ball wasn't coming to him. And that ultimately is what got him out of here. And when he got to Miami, he grew up and started doing that. But when he was here, that's not how he saw himself. He ran harder when he thought the ball was coming to him. And
the point I was getting at when I said that about the lack of having that preeminent wide receiver core is, I can remember games where Drew would be like halfway through the third quarter and he would have already thrown to 15 different targets.
Right.
And that's the difference that you have in a Tom Brady and a Drew Brees and these next level quarterbacks. Right. They're going to be able to hit the hot hand. They're going to be able to throw these guys open. Because I'm going to tell you something. I've sit in that Superdome and watched, and Drew be in the shotgun and get that snap, and there is no way on God's green earth that he saw that receiver. No way. Not even standing on his toes with his head back like this, but he dropped a dime on him, and the pass was good.
Yeah.
Well,
I've been on the business end of that. I know.
Well, like you said, the receivers have to finish their routes, and he knows with it. He has played the game in his head before he's gone on the field.
Yeah.
He knows where everybody's supposed to be at every time, based on the defense he's looking at. Mm-hmm. takes that snap, he looks at the field, he knows where everybody's going to be, so he can sell. Okay, safety, I want you to come this way because I'm going to throw on this side. So he's staring down somebody he has no intention to throw to, and that safety thinks he's going to get an easy pick, and Breeze puts it, turns his head, lets it go, and because he knows that guy is going to be at the spot where he needs to put the ball.
Yeah,
and that's the key to the Saints offense. And it's funny, going back to the Panthers for a second. The Panthers brought in Joe Brady from LSU,
right,
who was an assistant to the assistant in the Saints offense, became an assistant offensive coordinator for LSU, brought the Saints offense concepts to LSU. LSU starts running a pro offense versus college football teams.
Changes history.
No wonder people will lose their minds. So now he's going to be the offensive coordinator in Tampa. It's going to be interesting to see.
Carolina.
Carolina. Sorry, Carolina. It's going to be interesting to see how many of these concepts he can actually implement in Carolina, because it's one thing to install this offense, and this is what I was getting to with the very first question I asked you, Gene.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing to install an offense. It's another thing to execute it the way it should be executed. Right. And that's why I'm really curious to see how this, because the offense that Brady learned over in New England is unlike any offense they run in the league anymore today. It's the old Ron Earhart offense that Belichick learned from Bill Parcells in 1979 and 1982. You know, when
you added some wrinkles to it, and there you go.
But it's that old Ron Earhart offense that is unlike anything else anyone runs. So I don't know how you're going to be able to combine a Bruce Arians offense and a Ron Earhart offense into one. I just don't see the match. The Saints run Air Coryell and the West Coast offense, and Peyton has learned how to make that fit.
Right.
But I don't know how that's going to fit over there in Tampa. That's going to be interesting to see what happens there.
You know, I really believe, again, that Tom Brady is going to have a lot more say-so than a quarterback really should in normal circumstances.
Absolutely.
Again, I just don't see him coming to Tampa if he doesn't have some sort of autonomy when he's on the field, being able to make adjustments at the line when you see a defense, that wasn't what you were expecting, to be able to call that audible and make those changes. You got to have a lot of confidence in your quarterback. And I think that's what's going to be very important, is, making sure that Tom Brady is comfortable, making sure that he has all these options. So I don't see a problem with it. I just think that he'll have more say-so in it. And, he is a consummate professional. As Sean made mention to, he's 102 years old. I'm sure he's seen a lot of different defenses, and I'm sure that he's not going to put this team in harm's way. And another thing that to keep in mind is what he's capable of doing when he's under center and he's able to control everything. I just don't see a problem with it moving at this point.
I think that
then that brings me to the next question. Let me ask him this question real quick.
Okay.
All right. So because of COVID, we have not had an off season that's typical. There's been no mini camps, no OTAs, no practices. How are you going to be able to, or how is Tom Brady going to be able to implement what he wants to do and get his timing down with these receivers? If we don't even know how training camp's going to go, if they have not been able to do these installations.
Well, the fact that they all have the playbook, and Tom Brady has been putting together private practices with wide receivers, and
that's against the rules.
Linemen. Yeah, I'm just relaying this.
There we go.
And undisclosed locations where they've been able to go out and practice. I think you're seeing your running back, Ronald Jones, Dare Ogunbowale, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, OJ Howard, Gronkowski. You've seen all these guys and some of your offensive linemen at some of these little mini practices. So they've all been working together. Again, Tom Brady wants to win. Tom Brady is a consummate professional, and he's doing everything in his power to really make sure that these types of things happen. Somebody's mask on now.
Y'all got me. Y'all talking about COVID got me nervous.
There we go. All right.
I had to go to the hospital the other day and had to buy a $10 mask.
It was worth
it. $10.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that, my friend.
It's neoprene.
Did the bottle of KY come with that? I mean, good Lord, $10.
No, but when she handed me my change, she did say bend over. Anyway, I'd like to springboard off of that question that you just asked, Alan, if Gene doesn't mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've been rehashing this over and over every week, discussing the latest possibilities, what could happen, what may happen. I'm going to put you on the hot seat. As it stands right now, do you see September football in the National Football League?
No, personally, no. Unless they make either one or two things has to happen. They either need to do social distancing or not have fans in the stands.
And how can you? I'm sorry to interrupt, but just kind of devil's advocate. How can you have an NFL football game with no asses every 18 inches and make that a lucrative proposition? Because all you're doing is owners are losing money if there's not people in the stands. So how long are they going to be supportive of that? That's what I'm wondering.
Again, you're talking about, like you said, you're talking about money. I'm thinking about people's health more than anything. Maybe I'm thinking about this all wrong here. I'm not thinking like an owner, but I would say, social distancing. If you're doing social distancing and rotating when certain fans can go to games, I could see that limiting the number of fans that you have, or potentially just not having fans at all. I personally don't have an answer for this. But again, if the numbers continue to climb like they have, and we're not seeing any signs of relief, what honestly do you do? I mean, when you're thinking,
you're in Arizona, correct?
Yeah, I am in Arizona.
What do the numbers look like where you are?
Atrocious. They look similar to Florida's. It's I think Arizona leads the world in the number of COVID cases daily.
Well, our governor did a press conference. Alan, was it like 2, maybe 3 days ago that Edwards, and he said that New York leads the country and right behind them is Louisiana.
Well, really? But here's the thing though. There was a story that came out today out of Florida that they were overcounting. Mm-hmm. They turned it 100% numbers, and they said, it was not actually 100%, it was 98%. No, it was actually 9.8%, which is a huge difference. Yeah. So
people need to be very, very careful. And I've said this about sports, about news, I've said this for the longest time. Be careful of who you trust and who you put your faith in when it comes to getting your news and your statistics and stuff such as that. I'm not saying
my wife works at Phoenix Children's, and I can tell you that this is
God bless her. Thank her for me from her service, please.
When you talk about having to bring adults over to use the ECMO machines because there just aren't any, I mean, that should tell you what you need to know when you're having to bring adults to a children's hospital.
Please,
just to consider that. I mean, I understand what you're hearing about stats and everything like that. I worry about her having to go onto the COVID floor and do what she needs to do. So
just to make sure that everyone and our regular viewers know me well enough to know that I'm a wing nut, but I am not making light of this because
not at all. I mean,
we are living in unprecedented times.
Absolutely.
The girl that I'm seeing and I went with her to the doctor the other day. They wouldn't even let me in the clinic to sit in the waiting room and wait for her to do her appointment.
No, they don't. They don't.
Aren't you at risk? Aren't you somewhat at risk though? I mean, for you?
Yes, I am. I am considered in a very high risk category.
See, Sean was seeing a girl, but then the police came and took the binoculars away. So
you weren't supposed to tell anybody that.
Yeah. But anyway, no, and I don't think any reasonable person is thinking things are a hoax and stuff like that. I just think we're seeing more and more testing, so more and more people are testing positive, but being asymptomatic, meaning they're not showing any symptoms. They don't have fever. They, none of that stuff. But they are potentially harmful to people with compromised immune systems, and I think that's some of the stuff that you're seeing.
And that's the category that I'm in.
It's the highest with children. There are so many children that are asymptomatic, and they could carry it and not even know it, and that's why for me it's important to either stay home, or if I go where I need to go and come home and make sure that I'm following all the rules. I would die inside if I knew that I was responsible for, causing somebody else to lose their life because of something that I do.
Well, and that leads into the next thing I was going to talk about is, we all talking about the possibility of having a season. Mm-hmm. That's my biggest concern because let's say we have asymptomatic players, okay?
Right. And I'm sure you will.
14, and you absolutely will. And for 14 days, you show no symptoms. Then you test positive.
There were 30 of your players.
Well, yeah. What happens if they've been at the practice? Yeah. You got to quarantine the teams. Do you make up that game? Do you play that game? Does that game just not count? How do you do this?
It's one of those nightmares that the NFL Players Association is actually working with. I know that DeMar Smith was not happy with Tom Brady having these practices because they hadn't ironed out everything that was surrounding COVID-19. And well, how do you do this? We need to figure out what to do. Is this a player that goes on injured reserve? Is this a player that how do you account for these players? There's so many moving parts here.
Exactly. That's the thing that's so troubling right now is the fact that there is so damn much that nobody knows. This, as to use the term that you used earlier, Gene, we're living in unprecedented times. Nobody knows how to deal with this. We've never seen this before. We've never dealt with this before. And there is a possibility that there may be a lot of people making a mountain out of a molehill, but there's just as distinct a possibility that this could cost people their lives. And at the end of the day,
that's always my concern.
At the end of the day, yes, these professional athletes, this is their job, but this is a game. This has nothing to do with bringing food home and putting on the table for your family.
Well, but it does. It does because you've got, let's take Drew Brees and Michael Thomas and the big money players out of the conversation. Let's just talk about.
Yeah. They got more money than their grandchildren's grandchildren.
Let's talk about that undrafted free agent who's on the rookie contract and may or may not make the team, or the guy who's on the practice squad. He gets paid a paycheck per game that he's on the roster,
or a paycheck per week for being on the practice squad.
Right. So if there's no season, there's no games they play. It's conceivable he doesn't get paid because that has always been when we've had player strikes. I'm talking about the player strike in 82, the player strike in 87.
Yes.
The guys who always break the strikes are the guys who are not the
fringe guys.
Money, the big contract guys. Those are the first guys to cross the picket lines because they're like, hey, man, I know you got your money. You can afford to miss a few paychecks. I can't.
Yeah. Right.
And if you think about this is basically on the same level as what you saw. Well, maybe not on the same level, maybe to an nth degree larger, but a few years ago when everybody was jumping up and down and screaming about traumatic brain injuries,
Right.
you had these fringe guys that were saying, hey, I'm more than happy to take that risk to get paid. And you're going to have the same thing now with these guys that are going to put their health on the line to get on the field.
But I think it should be their choice. I think, as long as you've laid out everything that could potentially happen, I think you leave the choice up to the players and you kind of go from there.
I can agree with that.
But
because ultimately they're the ones that are going to be affected because you've already taken steps to eliminate the crowd away from the players.
All right, so let me ask you this then. Let's say for the
I hate it when he says that.
I know. Well, I can do what my dad usually does. He goes, timeout, one question. You never wanted to get that done to you. Number one, he knows the answer to the question he's asking you. So you better answer it right.
Second, if one of your parents ever says, let me ask you a question, don't answer.
Yeah.
Hey, what? I'm going timeout and I'm going in the other room.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I'm going to lean over the table. Just go ahead and whip my ass. I probably, if I didn't deserve it this time, I'm going to do something in the immediate future where I did deserve it. Let's just get it done and over with.
Let me
what was your question, Alan?
Oh, my question basically is, I mentioned the strike for a reason. Let's say the star players of in the union say, you know what, I'm not playing. But as you said, the fringe players are going to say, no, I'll go out there and play. And the teams say, well, you know what, we only have 25 guys. We need more players. Mm-hmm. So they bring in replacement players. How many people are going to go out there and want to watch, instead of Tom Brady versus Drew Brees, watch guys like
Geno Smith and
even worse than Geno Smith.
He's still alive?
I'm gonna go back in time to the 87 games.
John
Forcade versus we have to push the Washington
Redskins
next week.
John Forcade versus Aaron Brooks.
Not even Aaron Brooks, but the Washington Redskins quarterback came out of prison. They had him. He was in prison. And there goes Sean. He just fell over from that joke. But they had a guy come out of prison, allowed the longest yard to quarterback that team. So let's just say you have inmate number
Crew.
20. Paul Crew, inmate number 2121, come out there and quarterback the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
You're not going to see that.
You killed my entire setup, dude.
I know.
That again, this is where you wonder where the NFL is. You always hear the NFL talking about protecting the shield. You always hear that. And this is their product. This is their baby. And you're talking about putting scab players and I probably shouldn't use that term.
No, that's an accurate term though.
But you're talking about putting scabs on the field. It's not the same. It's not the same product. Mm-hmm. And again, that shows a level of hypocrisy, in my opinion, when you talk about that, because you want your best. You want your best unless somebody's injured. Unless somebody's injured and you're putting in a backup, I can see that. But that was through the process of the game. But if you're bringing somebody in who they have no business on the field and under reasonable circumstances they wouldn't be there, I have a problem with that.
But think about there's one factor that you have to include in that. That's the consumption of the product. By the time this point in time, and this is strictly supposition and thinking, by the time this time rolls around, you're going to be talking about fans that were deprived of an NBA season. They were deprived of a Major League Baseball season. Apparently are going to be deprived of an NFL season. They are going to be so starved for entertainment. You can put Uncle Rico out there under center for New Orleans, and I mean, just playing the devil's advocate there.
Again, it's just the quality of the product. I mean, you look at the XFL, you look at the AAF when they were in the league. Yeah, that was entertainment, but that was just to get you over until
that was a good season. 5 minutes of fun.
Yeah, and it's a shame because I thought the XFL was with a lot of their concepts they were onto something.
I did too, and I really felt bad
COVID, with COVID coming along like it did, it just ruined everything. I really believe they could have been around for years had they had a good 2 years under their belt.
Vince learned a lot from the model that he put forward several years ago, and what he did right, what he did wrong. He learned a lot from the controversy of a couple of years ago with the league and how they handled that. And he had an excellent model that he put forward. I mean, it wasn't the New England Patriots.
I can't argue that at all. But kind of getting back to my point here, you had a lot of interest in XFL, but it's not the same as the NFL. It's not
by any means.
So, yeah, and like Daniel Ulrich is mentioning, you kind of enjoyed that, and I think that was just, it's something to keep in mind. Yeah, it was entertaining, but it's just not the same product. If you're paying all this money to go see the NFL, but you're not seeing the quality NFL players, it's just not the same. And you're putting a bad product on the field.
And you guys, if y'all want to know the name of that quarterback, his name was Tony Robertson. He played for the University of Tennessee in college football, 82 to 85. He got
off a liquor store.
He had a blown out knee against Alabama. Then a few weeks after the season, he was arrested in Knoxville on charges of distributing cocaine. Of course, it's the 80s, and which critically damaged his prospects in the NFL. He went undrafted in the 86 draft. He came out of prison in 87. And during the strike, he played one game for the Redskins after starting replacement quarterback Ed Rupert was injured. He led the Redskin replacement players to an improbable 13-7 win over the Dallas Cowboys.
Yes.
That featured a number of players who had crossed the picket lines during the strike, and his role is loosely portrayed by Keanu Reeves and Michael Jace in the film The Replacements. Yeah, but that's basically. So I didn't make that up. I wanted you guys to know that.
No, I believed you. I was all on board with that.
Yeah. But just think, there are those executives that thought Jamarcus Russell would be a good first pick of the draft too.
Yeah, man, Michael Lombardi.
Yeah, he was sitting on his butt, and he threw 80-yard bombs out the stadium. But his problem, of course, was he purple drank, I think is what it's called, where you mix codeine and grape Kool-Aid or something like that. And he was lazy.
You got the recipe for that?
Yeah. I had to Google it. I did not know what the hell they were talking about.
But I've never been a Michael Lombardi fan to begin with. I don't follow him as a sportscaster or whatever it is they have him as right now. He's never gotten it right. But again, he was part of, and we'll go back to college football for a second. If you watch A Football Life, the 1995 Cleveland Browns, he was part of that staff with. And you look at the names of the players, the names of the people that were in that staff. Yeah, Bill Belichick as head coach. You had Nick Saban, defensive coordinator. You had Michael Lombardi as part of the front office. You had what's his name, the GM for the Falcons,
Dimitroff.
Dimitroff was like a ball boy, or he was a gopher. One of the kids that was learning, and you've got all these guys that were all part of this super staff, and really. This team was on the verge of starting to make the playoffs, and of course they announced
they got monumentally bent over the table and screwed.
Yeah, Art Modell.
Thank you, Art Modell.
Yep, and that just destroyed the season. And really,
It
once
left
again,
it left a bad taste in my mouth when the
well-
Ravens beat the Giants in the Super Bowl, and
Mhm.
everybody was like, "Oh, Art Modell." It made me want to puke for what he did to Cleveland.
And here's the thing too: if he doesn't announce that move, does Belichick stay and build his dynasty in Cleveland instead of New England? You know,
Yeah, I don't think there's an evil empire then after all that happens. So like Tom Brady never gets his opportunity. You just never know. Chris Sims.
oh my God, because we're talking about dragging people out of prison. I'm volunteering to be a pass rusher for the Saints. At 50, almost 53 years old,
Jeez, Chris
I will
Sims.
volunteer to be a pass rusher just so I can take a free shot.
Can you block this guy, Chris Sims? Are you serious? Jesus Christ!
You got to know, John. You got to know, John.
My liver still hates Chris Sims. If that's any indication right there, cannot stand that guy.
Saints fan,
but you listen to him now, and he's the world
Mr.
beater.
Hot take.
Yeah, and he's got all the hot takes, and he made all the correct moves when he was the quarterback. Yeah, right. So you got to take those guys with a grain of salt, I imagine.
Well, here's
Phil's got to be sitting back going, "Man, dude, I love you. You're my son, but would you please shut the hell up?"
Exactly.
No, Chris, he probably says like Jackie Gleason. There's no way that you can come from my loins.
I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna kick your mama in the ass.
But Saints fans hate Chris Sims because Chris Sims' wife must fantasize about Drew Brees because every list of the best quarterbacks, he's always got Drew at the bottom. He always, dismisses Drew's accomplishments. He plays indoors. How good is he really? And it's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah. So that's why Chad Saints fans can't stand him either. No, there's. I know that the Buccaneers have their list of quarterbacks that they'd rather forget. The Saints do too. We got the Billy Joes. Y'all have got
Billy Joe Tolbert.
Wasn't Jack Thompson
Samoan?
Yeah, the overthrowing Samoan. That was his nickname that the Bucs gave him. The overthrowing Samoan.
But hey, you also had
Steve DeVerg. Chris Chandelier.
Yeah.
Chris Chandelier was one of our quarterbacks too.
Yep.
You also had Trent Dilfer, Steve Young, Doug Williams,
Vinny Testaverde.
Yeah. All quarterbacks.
Byron Leftwich, who happens to be the offensive coordinator now. The list goes on and on.
Yeah.
It's a painful list to go
Josh
through.
Freeman. Josh
Freeman. Josh could have been a good quarterback, but he self-destructed. And
I look at Josh Freeman in Tampa Bay the same way that I look at Aaron Brooks in New Orleans. I draw a lot of parallels between the two.
Yeah, well, Josh, I wish they had never brought Greg Schiano in. I think that's what had a lot to do with Josh Freeman's career going.
You know what?
Wherever it did.
Schiano's another guy that if I saw him on the street, I'd probably cold cock him because I thought he was a dirty little coach.
He's a scumbag, and I knew this when he was at Rutgers. And I know we're getting off tangent here. Mm-hmm. When he was at Rutgers.
There's nothing off tangent on our show.
No,
I'm a University of Kansas graduate, but living in Tampa, being from Tampa, families from Tampa, going to USF games was always fun. And when Rutgers would play USF, and I would get to watch Greg Schiano, I didn't think there was anything special about him. I didn't think he was a good coach, to be very honest. And
no,
I was just kind of shocked that you're backed into a corner and you got to end up with this guy of all people. I would have went to Labor Ready and said, here for $12.50 hour, let me rent a coach here. Let me rent a coach for just this season and just so we can get through this season. That would have been the direction I would have gone because that's pretty much what you had with Greg Schiano. That guy. Toes on the line, rushing the victory formation. What an idiot! Yeah,
Aaron's rent you own.
Exactly. I would have went to Rent-A-Center. Go to Rent-A-Center. I'll take a coach just for a year. I'll sign the contract right here.
Yeah. I mean, and we had John Meekum. Y'all had Hugh Cloverhouse. So
Yeah, Hugh Culverhouse was awful.
But
yeah.
I got to
Awful,
tell you,
awful. I could tell you stories.
one of my
Oh,
all-time
I have
favorite
some good stories.
personalities in the NFL was always John McKay.
Yeah,
Oh,
John
yeah.
McCain was a class act. Uh,
I remember sitting and watching his post-game interview where they asked him and said, Coach McKay, would you care to comment on your team's execution? He said, I'm all in favor of it.
I think I was 9 years old when I met him. 9,
Really?
almost 10.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, that was the greatest moment of my life. I thought I got to meet him, and then I got to meet Doug Williams, and then I got to meet Ricky Bell too. So I had to meet some of the great
Wow.
Bucs players.
Ricky Bell.
And,
That's a rare one because he passed away. What?
Yeah.
85, 84.
Yeah.
It was
84,
not,
I
think.
think.
Ended up going up to the Rams, and then I'm real good friends with his son. And it's just, and I'm, watching his grandson, going through sports and everything like that. And it's incredible to get to see that.
That's the way that I feel about Joe Delaney.
Yes.
Well, they've got
that was so depressing. Joe Delaney was amazing.
I don't know if I've ever told you this, Gene. Joe Delaney was from like 2.5 hours up the interstate in Houghton, Louisiana. He played there in high school. He went to Northwestern State down in Natchitoches. He actually died about 3 miles from where I'm sitting right now. He tried to save those 3 kids from drowning. And they just recently erected a memorial for him in that park where the water park used to be. I think it was like 2 years after his death. They bulldozed.
You have to give me some pictures of that. I've got some friends that are huge Chiefs fans that really love that guy.
Everybody thinks that I wear the number 37 for Steve Gleason. That's not true. When I played in Oklahoma, I was actually in Oklahoma when Joe Delaney died, and I had so much admiration for him because he was a local Louisiana. I was from here, but he was a local Louisiana boy that made it to the NFL. So I started wearing number 37. So when I got my my custom made Saints jersey, I got number 37 on it, and it was because of Joe Delaney.
Yeah, he's amazing. He was amazing.
Well, and here I was getting ready to talk about some favorite John McKay quotes, and y'all go and bring me down with Joe Delaney stories. But my two favorite quotes from John McKay. One, it's post-game press conference, and he says, the reporter says, your quarterback seems to have taken a lot of sacks. There was a lot of pressure on during the game. He says, we didn't block very well, but we made up for it by not tackling. So a great summary of the Bucs and my kind of humor. But the other one I like was the kicker. They had his first year in 76. The kicker they brought in was really nervous, and he was shanking kicks and things like that. And they asked him about this, and he says, well, I get really nervous, seeing John McKay on the field. And John McKay says, well, I've got bad news for you. I plan on attending all the games.
That sounds like him. That is just that's classic what he sounds like.
And his other one more I gotta tell you, one of the fans had called into the show and to his radio show, and they said, I'm watching your team out there, and no one is really excited. They're just there. There's nobody like getting the team all wound up, and a lot of rah-rah. And McKay says, listen, I have to say, being emotional on the field is overrated. He says, my wife Cokie is emotional as hell, and she can't call a play worth a damn. It was just classic McKay.
Exactly. And the thing was, you never knew what you were going to hear him say.
Oh, it's incredible because, and when you look at those things, and then you listen to almost coach by rote now with they there's no personality, no unless the coach is on his way out, they don't give a
Yeah.
damn anymore. But they are so careful and everything's so structured.
Choreographed.
Yeah,
You
you
know,
just don't get
that's what
that raw thing
that's what I
anymore.
love about Arians, because Arians is like the polar opposite of that.
Mhm.
You never know what you're going to get from that guy. From one interview to the next one, he could be on point and be as political as possible, and then the next time he's ripping you and letting you have it. So
Yeah.
you never know what you're going to get from that guy. It's a breath of fresh air in my opinion.
Well, and that's why it's been 30 years since he's been coaching for the Saints, or 25 years, as you really say, since he's coached the Saints. But Jim Morris quotes and Jim
Yes.
Morris' old press conferences
They're
still
gold.
have right
He
because
wasn't dealing with the real world there towards the end.
Yeah.
well, I mean, losing Sam Mills was the thing that really killed him
Yeah.
coaching, because he watched Sam Mills destroy his offense when he was in Carolina. And he knew it. And it was just, this is why
And
I
stood
can't
by
do
and
this
just
job.
watched it happen. Yeah. kinda.
Yeah, I can't do this anymore because you're letting all my players go and you expect me to go out there and win with inferior talent.
Right.
And he didn't call them inferior talent, but that's exactly what they were. You know, you let Morton Anderson go to they go to the division rivals. Let Morton Anderson go to Atlanta because you're trying to save a buck. And then you don't make a good offer to Sam Mills, who gets insulted and takes a lower offer from Carolina because you made him go out there and figure out his price. Yeah, that was the end. So,
I am totally on point with you on that, man. It's just it's crazy how the NFL is kind of a microcosm of the rest of the world, to be honest. Just with the way things are.
Yeah, always has been.
Yeah.
Well, Chad mentioned Warwick Dunn. I was in college when this happened. Warwick Dunn, before he went to the University of Florida. I'm sorry, Florida State. Sorry, it's a big mistake. I knew better. I knew it was a Seminole.
Oh, you start a fight like that, dude.
I know. That's like accusing an Alabama player of going to Auburn. Or mentioning my father-in-law that I liked Ole Miss. You just don't do that, But he Warwick Dunn was a high school student. His mother was a police officer, and she's working a detail, and she got shot and killed. And because of that, and Warwick Dunn got a lot of offers and a lot of things to help him graduate, because he was a good football player in Baton Rouge, to help him go to Florida State and help raise his siblings and stuff, that, he always gave back by buying people homes, but you had to show that you were going to work for it too. He just didn't give somebody a home.
Was it Lamar Jackson or Deshaun? Was it Deshaun Watson? One of the two. He bought a house for their mom. One of their. I think it was Deshaun Watson.
I think it was Deshaun Watson.
It was Deshaun Watson's mom got the house, and he never forgot that.
Exactly. So, I will always have, even though Dunn played for the Buccaneers and then later the Falcons, I'm always have tremendous respect for that man because of what he did off the field. And
even if he went to Atlanta,
well, that was the old WD-40 offense in Tampa, because you had Dunn, who was WD, and then you had Mike Allstott, number 40.
Yeah, so, there you go.
Yeah.
Allstott was a beast.
Yeah,
Allstott was a throwback. He was a throwback. I miss him. He was the throwback to the old,
Allstott always reminded me of Hokie Gajan.
Actually, I was going to say he reminded me of Larry Zonka, the big bruising fullback. He loved contact, and
3 yards in a cloud of blood.
Well, I've been watching a lot of old football games on YouTube just because that's how I'm getting my football fix. And I'm talking about games in the 70s and the 80s. And I watched one with, and you forget how good John Madden and Pat Summerall were in the 80s. Not the old John Madden who just kind of rambled, but the funny John Madden, and yeah, it was a different
if
game.
you've got kids or grandkids, just to show them some of those throwback games. Like I was telling my son about Deion Sanders. I was like, this guy was the real deal. And he was like, oh, no. And so I just, I had to show him video of, hey, this guy was the real deal here. And,
God, I hated him.
The one thing the guy backed up, as much as as flashy as he was, he always backed it up on the field.
Did you ever see his uniform dirty? That's not a cornerback.
That's what I always wanted to strive for right there, man. Is just having that clean uniform, because I mean, you're right. And he never had to tackle anybody. He shut down half the field, didn't have to do anything really.
Well, and it's funny because you're watching these games from the 80s and you think about today's rules as you're watching these hits and stuff. I'm going, there's a flag. Yep. That's a flag. Oh, that's a huge flag.
Defensive receiver.
Oh, yeah. I'm watching the receiver turn back, going like this for the ball. Here comes the safety drawing a bead, launches himself into the guy's face mask. He goes head over heels. The ball sails past and like, no flag.
Yeah, but you didn't see any slant. You didn't never see any slant passes very often.
No. It was fun watching Deion Sanders go up. It was always fun. It was always fun watching Deion Sanders go up against Michael Irvin, because you knew one of them was going to commit a foul.
Yeah,
Michael Irvin was going to like push him off and push him like 8 yards away, or Deion Sanders was going to grab his jersey and throw him down and jump up.
But that recovery speed, I mean, just how fast he was just crazy.
Deion Sanders was limited on ability as a defensive back, but he had the speed to cover his behind on what he did. And I give him props for that.
He knew he was fast. So
I didn't like him, but I'll give him his props.
His thing was he knew he was fast, so what he would do is he bait the quarterback to throw to him, because that was his thing. His game was a break on the ball, and he was going to catch it. And that was just how he played.
I came from a different era where your cornerbacks and your defensive backs were like Jack Tatum and Lester Hayes.
Oh, so you wore Stickum then?
Yeah.
Hey, whatever works, man.
If you watch the 1980 Super Bowl 15, and you just see Lester Hayes out there, his uniform, everybody else's uniform is silver and black. His is silver, black, and orange, because he's got so much Stickum. He's spraying on it. It looks like he sneezed on himself. There's Stickum dripping off his fingers,
And he ruined so many footballs that they had to change that rule.
Absolutely.
He jumped up in the air and stuck there.
Oh, and he crouched down so low.
Yeah.
And he'd have his hands out. He was about 6 inches off the ground. It was like he was doing squats. He's just sitting there waiting. I don't know how he turned his hips and broke out of that, but that's what he would do. And that was it. He was just covered in Stickum. And he'd have big globs of it in his socks. You could always reach down and touch and get some more. And you're not playing when they used to play, a lot of stadiums had the baseball field combination. Right. So, you get that football back and it's covered Stickum, and they got grass, mud,
dirt,
Sand.
sand.
Look like a powdered donut.
Yeah. Well, if you watch America's game, the 1980 Raiders, they had the Houston Oilers. We were talking about the Oilers in the beginning of the show, but the Houston Oilers had a center. I can't think of his name right now. He's the one that sang all the time. The Oilers Cannonball. He became an offensive assistant under Bum Phillips, but
Munchak.
I can't think. No, not Munchak. This is before Munchak. This is he was a big round guy. He looks like an oil field worker. But anyway, the Stork, the linebacker Ted Hendricks. It was right before the end of the half, and Hendricks says, "Give me a thing of Stickum," and he had this wad on his hand, and when they go in the huddle, Hendricks walked over and put a big old glob of stickum right there in the middle of the ball. So as soon as the guy went down to grab it, he puts his hand in that stuff. And he says, the conversations, you don't get to hear this. You can now, but you couldn't hear it on the field back then. And he says he goes and puts his hand in the ball, and he gets his hand covered in that stickum. He goes, Hendricks, you motherfucker! And I got to bleep it out just in time. You son of a bitch! That's the kind of stuff the Raiders would do back then, just to mess with you.
Because they were dirty like that. Is it Carl Mock?
Carl Mark. That's who it is. I'm sorry, guys. I just got a Charlie horse in my leg. I get him every so often if I sit in his chair too long.
That's what happens when you get old.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
Yes, when you get old like this, absolutely. I hate this chair that I have. It's an old cheap chair.
I have to kind of invest in a new one. I think it's about time.
Yeah. And if I sit in it too long, I get Charlie horses in my legs, and I've been sitting in it most of the day today. So, miserable.
Well, Gene, tell us, what's going on with Buck? What you heard, man?
I've been trying to stay busy, man. It's just been such a slow football season. I mean, you can only talk about Tom Brady so much, and it's been good.
Well, it's not for lack of trying.
Exactly. I mean, if you don't want to talk about it, you can turn on NFL Network or ESPN, and they'll talk about him for you.
Yeah, they'll be more than happy to give you your fix.
I tend to do more with podcasts because I feel like you guys are closer to the teams, and you could get a more in-depth understanding of a team if you want to by a podcast, whereas you just get talking points from your major networks. I don't think they really put a lot of emphasis on, what a team does or how good a team is. You may have a few people that do, but I tend to lean towards podcasts for that information. You and Bob Rose, like I mentioned Bob Rose earlier, you guys are awesome. I mean, if there's somebody that I want to check out when it comes to the Saints, you guys are it.
Well, thank you very much. That's the ultimate compliment for us. We do this as a labor of love, and we love our team. We love talking about it. We love being about it. And man, I can't tell you, just me personally, I've missed you. I haven't got to see you or talk to you in so long. It's great to have you on the show again. We'll have to do this.
I'm really hoping to get you. Hoping to get you guys on here in the next couple of weeks to.
I'm on call, man.
Yeah. All right.
It's not like I'm working for a living or anything.
Well,
and Alan, you guys work well together. I get to check you guys out and listen to your show because again, it's good to get the pulse on what's going on in the NFC South, and you guys do a great job. So
thank you very much.
Well, you alluded,
really appreciate it.
You alluded earlier to wanting to maybe work up a project dealing with the NFC South. Well, if there's anything that I or we can do to help you towards that end, please include us. Let us know what we can do to help.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely it's something that's missing in the podcast world where you're just talking about whole divisions. So I thought that would be kind of cool.
We used to do that. We used to do that.
Southbound and down.
Yeah, 2 years ago, but we had such a problem with people wanting to talk about Atlanta.
Yeah, that does kind of ruin it for you.
It's
any chance I'm going to.
I'm not going on YouTube. People actually see me wearing red and black. Are you crazy?
Well, here's the thing too. I mean, right now, as you can tell, I wasn't sure what we could even talk about today. With so much unknown stuff, training camp's supposed to start in 2 weeks. What's
the over and under on that?
Exactly. I don't know if it's ever going to happen. So we're running out of things to talk about, really. So it would be good to have an NFC South roundtable discussion. Just to
I just got to find somebody from Atlanta that I could tolerate. I think that's what it all comes. What it all comes down to.
We have one.
Yes, we do. We actually do. Josh is good.
Yeah, Josh is he's very level-headed and he's very very even keeled, so we can take our shots, and he doesn't. He has a thick skin.
Yeah, he enjoys them because they're things he's probably said himself. So
yeah,
that's the best part. But
quick question for you guys: Is Who Dat Holly in the chat out there?
No, she is not.
I was telling her that I was on.
Okay.
Telling her I was on here talking about her beloved Saints. And
well,
somebody, if you're not following her on Twitter during game day, that's you're missing something. She gets sent to Twitter jail on a regular basis. Just she said some things about Roger Goodell that no ears should be able to listen to.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
I'm gonna have to follow her now for sure.
Yeah, she will go in on that guy, and she just when that one play when they didn't reverse that pass interference call or something like that, she lost her mind. She lost her mind.
I've told the story 100 times, and I'll say it one more time.
And I'm here to tell you, I mean, Roger Goodell has it in for the Saints. I promise you he does.
People, it was a nice spring or late winter, early spring kind of day. I had my windows open. I've got a sliding glass door that I'm going to replace eventually. But I had a sliding glass door at my kitchen. I had that door open with the screen, so you had nice breeze through the house. People, 3 neighborhoods over, knew that it wasn't just pass interference, but it was pass interference.
Oh my God!
That's how outraged I was at that game.
Man,
and well,
that's the night that I had to crash on the way home.
I had to check on her. I had to check on her after the Minnesota Miracle. I actually physically had to check on her because that was just a bad day, and
you think it was a bad day for you?
For her.
Yeah, it was unbelievable to see that.
Well,
happen.
I've told this story on here before. The Minnesota Miracle didn't sting quite as bad as you might think. It was his bang bang play. It was a big play at the end of the game in a playoff.
You guys are advancing. You guys are literally advancing.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter. I honestly believe no matter who would have faced you guys would have destroyed him at that point, just because the AFC at that point.
I didn't. I didn't feel like if we had beat Minnesota that week, I didn't feel like we would have been able to beat the Eagles in Philadelphia.
The Minnesota Miracle, Minneapolis Miracle, what really upset, my wife said it best. What made you upset was they gave you hope that they were going to pull this game out. It's one in the first half, they were just getting their butts kicked all over the field. And you're just like, okay, we're getting our ass kicked. So be it. It's just not going to happen. But the second half was a complete reversal. In fact, Michael Thomas destroyed Xavier Rhodes' career. Xavier Rhodes was never the same after that game.
Crossroads were done.
Yeah. And the Saints take that lead with 10 seconds left, and you're like, okay, we're going to the NFC Championship game. I didn't expect this when we start off 0-2. This is awesome. And that play happens.
And I'm sitting in front of the TV going.
But as a Buck fan, as a Saints fan, you've seen this before.
Yeah.
The great River City Relay where, all these people a la, Cal and Stanford, all these guys catch this ball and they score a touchdown, but we miss the extra point and we lose the game by 1 point, or, by 1 point.
Yeah.
So, you're in your mind, you're conditioned to that. But the pass interference call just, I'll never.
Yeah, that was so much different because you lose the game on a big play where guys were playing hard and one guy made a play and the other one didn't. I can live with that. Now you lose a game because referee blew the penalty and didn't have the
that was a horrible call, man.
As Mick Foley put it, you didn't have the testicular fortitude to pick up the flag or to drop the flag.
Drop the flag, throw the flag.
And see, that just fuels every conspiracy theorist that hates the NFL and saying
absolutely
this game was fixed. That's what it does. I mean, you know what? The XFL and not to throw this out there, but the XFL gave me hope because you had transparency. You heard what the referee was saying to the people up in the booth, and you had a camera over their shoulder, and they're showing you, okay, this is what's going on here. This is what I'm seeing, and this is why I called this. I have not in years actually watched games and not been upset with the referee. And there was one game they blew the call, and the referee got booted down to, like, I don't know what happened to him. I think they sent him back to the WWE or something. I don't know what. He was gone after that, but they never put him in that position again just because of how poorly that game was played. This is what the NFL is going to really need to do. I mean, because if this continues, people are going to start questioning these things more and more. The referees are not doing their jobs.
It all comes down to the integrity of the game. And
absolutely
anything that people are spending that much money to be a part of, to use the term that you use, Gene, they're going to want transparency. They're going to want integrity. And if you make them feel like that it's on the sly,
because think about this. People are thinking that Vegas is controlling these games right now.
Sure.
You could get 10 guys in a room and you bring up Vegas and controlling the games, and people are not going to be like, no, you're crazy. They're going to be like, oh, well, that's possible. It's like not out of the realm of possibility just because of some of these just outright blatant bad plays. There's a pass interference call and you don't call it, or there's a catch and it's ruled incomplete pass. Those little things like that.
I'll mention the name Bert Emanuel.
Jesus Christ! Yeah, that was.
I mean, there's a case. There's a case where that's
and all you get is a thank you letter from the NFL.
Yeah, that's a catch, but nope, we're going to rule this not a catch. He doesn't have full control, which they've never called that before, but doesn't have full control when he comes down.
That's
way
what
you
pissed me.
Greatest show on turf in the Super Bowl.
That's what pissed me off the most about the no call was the fact that
it was that obvious.
It was obvious, but when all was said and done, there was absolutely no recourse. Because what are they going to play the game again? No, I don't want to advance in the playoffs in that fashion.
Well,
and then there's not public accountability for these referees when they make these messed up calls. They need to be held accountable, not protected behind this.
And then you go and do, okay, so we're going to have a rule now where you can challenge pass interference calls, but we're not going to reverse it because, and I've said this to Sean before. They took my brother's attitude. Do a job so crappy, they will never ask you to do it again. And that's the genius of it. So they don't reverse any of the calls. So if you challenge it, you're losing your challenge because it doesn't matter.
They're not going to allow anything.
So once again, that feeds into conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
And again, I would love to know what they're saying in a booth. What are they looking at that us as fans, we're looking at a replay. Maybe we don't have the same angle, but it's painfully obvious. This here is pass interference.
Right.
And or this is pass interference, or let me drape over you. This is pass interference, but hey, we're not going to call that because it's all, it's the heat of the game.
Well, right. I got news for these guys. I'm 52 years old. I've got 45 plus years experience in this game. I've been a player. I've been a coach. I've been a player's dad. I've been an assistant coach. I've played at nearly the highest level. I know I played defensive back. I know what constitutes pass interference. I was a wide receiver. I know what constitutes pushing off an offensive pass interference. Don't insult my intelligence by telling me that by your terminology, this isn't what it is.
Here's the thing for me. we have the technology, and I mentioned earlier, I've been watching old football games. You watch old football games, it's very static, the camera angles. There's very few cameras out there. You see pretty much the same thing. And if the camera buys a play action pass, they follow the runner and they're not following the ball. Today's technology, it's like you've got 30 cameras out in the field, plus that camera in a nationally televised game that's overhead, swinging back and forth. To tell me now, oh, we don't have the technology to review these plays properly and all this stuff is ridiculous. You've got the technology. Yes, you've got the technology now that you can follow the ball. It's not like how it was 20 years ago, even, where people are just going, oh, well, it's the game. They can only see so much. We don't have a good camera angle to see this. That's a BS argument now.
Yeah, that is an absolute insult to my intelligence.
So to tell me that I can't review pass interference calls properly is ridiculous. You can review them properly and make the system work, but they didn't want to make it work.
And what makes it even worse is the Players Association, when it came down to the collective bargaining agreement, they didn't factor any of this stuff in there. None of it. I mean, no. To be honest, Roger Goodell is too powerful. There is no way if I'm part of the Players Association that you want somebody like this that you have to deal with. And I think when they gave him all that power,
he gathers absolute power unto himself, and they sit by and allow it to happen.
But they gave him the power. Gene. That's the difference. They gave him that power because they didn't want to be the bad guys. They didn't want to have to deal with this, so it was a lot easier to pass it all off to Roger Goodell to do that.
And he's going to get worse.
And he is going to make it worse because people were mad that if you flag positive for drugs, and that could be marijuana, could be Adderall, could be anything. You flag positive for drugs, you can get suspended for a whole season if you have enough positive tests.
Right.
You beat up a woman, you whip your child, you do any kind of physical abuse. There are no standards. There's nothing in the CBA to say, okay, like drugs, first offense, this. Second offense, 5-game suspension. Third offense, season suspension. There's none of that. So Goodell makes the call.
What would have satisfied everybody if there was an independent counsel that handled this? Take the power away from Roger Goodell. And I'll tell you why. Because the owners are absolved of any wrongdoing because you've got an independent counsel that's not beholding to the owners or the Players Association. They're independent. And that way, it's fair. And then you come up with a system to where it's consistent. Any of your disciplines are consistent.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
By doing that, you're strengthening the shield. But now what you're doing is you're putting wrong way Roger back in the position that he's had, and you've even given him more power, and he's just going to get worse. And to be honest, I think the guy's corrupt personally. I think he's corrupt. I have questions about because again, absolute power corrupts absolutely, and all he has to do is make sure that the owners are appeased. He doesn't care about the Players Association. It doesn't matter. As long as the owners.
That's the main thing.
The owners is who he answers to. As long as he's good, as long as they're good with him, he can do whatever he wants to. He can go out and shoot somebody in the head on 32nd Street and get away with it.
Age-old argument. Bountygate.
Well,
Sean Payton. Wait. Sean Payton gets told, you should have known it was on your watch. Fast forward a couple of years. Deflategate. Bill Belichick never even gets questioned for what happened on his watch.
Well, but there's a difference because there was a
one's
lawsuit.
New England and his best friend is the owner.
It's beyond that. There was a lawsuit by former players about concussions, CTA, all those things, and how violent the game was. So we're going to make an example out of the Saints to show that we're tough against violence in the game.
But it's football.
Yeah, it is. It is football. But you make the Saints the pigeon, essentially. that's going to get the sacrificial
They're the
lamb,
tax.
gets thrown up there. Yeah, gets thrown up there so you can show how tough you are. So when you go to the lawsuit to deal with CTE, you're saving the owner's money because they can say, look, these are all the things that we've done, and we've just punished the team after repeated warnings to stop their bounty program, which wasn't a bounty program. And that was the difference between that and Deflategate. That is the fundamental difference and will always be that way. My brother just chimed in. Yeah, and arbitrators, what we're talking about, like Major League Baseball. Yeah.
But I'm just talking about like a independent, just totally independent counsel, just where they would weigh this and weigh how it will affect the league, and just I understand when you talk about arbitrators, but if you have a group of them and they all work together and they have to come to a conclusion, it can't be just one person, and that's kind of what you have with Roger Goodell. You want to avoid that. You want to have a group of people as opposed to
throw a flag on the referee. Can you imagine the fans throwing flags on the referee? A team with the ability to do that.
There would be a brick wrapped in that flag.
Well, I've only been thrown out of one basketball game in my entire life as a parent, and it was because I stood up and told an official he made a bad call. How
exactly did you word those specific
words?
I actually let me explain how this went, and I promise we'll get off after this. Okay, so you got one young ref.
You might as well lead with. See, what had happened was.
Yeah, I know. You got one old ref who's making all the calls, and you got one young ref who basically his role in this is I just happen to have the best seat of the game to watch this
Dere
game.
In the headlights.
Yeah, he's not making a single call. So a play, and the way basketball works, you got one official who really makes the calls on one side of the court, and the other official makes the calls on the other side of the court. Well, this was a play where the ball gets stolen. She's on a fast break, running down the sideline, and it's our team that's running down the sideline with the ball, and the girl comes down and fouls her and knocks the ball out of bounds, and the official at the top just blows possession, the other team. And by this time, they had made enough bad calls. This time, I had enough. So I stood up and pointed out that official. I said, you can't make that call. That's his job over here. He's not doing a damn thing out here, but watching the game and not making a call. It happened right in front of him. No, you got to go. And my wife, my daughter sees this, she's like, oh my God. My wife, she doesn't sit by me. She sits way over here on the other side of the gym. I don't know that man. Denies me 3 times. I don't know that man. And I know parents of the other team and everything else like that, but I'm like, I'm right. You're wrong. So, and
Napoleon much?
When the cop escorted me out, the cop's like, you know what? You were right about that, but I got to carry you out of here. So I'm like, hey, and I don't wait until. I don't yell it when the crowd's all going, oh, boo. I wait till the gym is dead quiet, and this is a girls' basketball game, and my loud ass voice comes across the entire gym, hears me. You can't make that call. And I pointed him out, and that was what really got me in trouble because he knew who it was that said that, so that's me.
Gene, Alan's a big old boy.
Yeah. Yeah.
That had to happen.
Well,
that just had to happen.
We've almost gone 2 shows tonight.
Absolutely.
Man, I have enjoyed so much getting to hang out with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. This has been exciting. And the fans, I've gotten to see some of the comments. I can't see all the comments. I'd have loved to have kind of interacted a little bit more.
My brother, who I used to call the prodigal son. Yeah, he knows. He knows the Bible stories represented a rooster crow. Yeah. Yes, it did.
Gene, tell all of our folks how they can follow you and your show, brother.
Yeah, I hang out on Twitter a lot. I rarely talk any sports on Facebook just because of all the lunatics on Facebook. But
you hang out on Twitter.
Yeah, I hang out on Twitter. I promise you.
Those people are worse.
I guess it all depends on the group of people that you associate yourself with. And you can reach me at Buck What You Heard. No, seriously, there are groups of people that I hang with, and my goal is to have friends from all 32 teams. And I think, who am I missing? I think the Buffalo Bills is probably one of the only fan bases I don't have friends from, out of all 32 teams. So
I'll hook you up. My mentor is a Buffalo Bills fan.
Bills Mafia.
That is Bills Mafia. I love those guys jumping off the tables and just whatever else they do over there in Buffalo with,
the cold affects their minds.
Yeah, exactly.
Throwing sex toys on the field. That's one of the things they do. That's hilarious. They did that to Tom Brady. Whenever they played the Patriots, they would throw sex toys at Tom Brady. It's hilarious.
Yeah. And again, I understand, when you're dealing with New England for the last 2 decades and what they've done, I guess that would do it. Well, guys, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
I appreciate it enough. And again, I'm always willing to come back on again if you guys get bored and you need me to talk your ear off. I'm always happy to do that.
Well, we definitely want to get you in before the first game of the season, because that's if everything happens the way it's supposed to.
That'll only be like 2 years from now, right?
Yeah, I know.
And again, guys, I am serious about trying to get the NFC South roundtable going. I think that would be awesome.
I'd love to do it. Love to do it.
Get everybody.
Love to do it too.
Thank you, Gene, for joining us. And
all right, guys.
All right, and thanks everybody for sticking with us for this hour and 45 minutes we've been on.
Didn't even feel like it.
No, it hasn't. It really hasn't. And it was a lot of fun.
It
we
really
enjoyed
was.
having guests. We've got a good format now.
That cat behind you is kind of creeping me out. But
algebra.
That's a Siamese cat, isn't it?
That's my co-host right there, algebra.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be sitting here looking at his face, and I'm on my cell phone, so I see something move, and it's like a ghost or something. So
now I'll give you an earworm for the rest of the night. From Lady and the Tramp, singing the Siamese cat. We are Siamese, if you please. Bum. So anyway, thank you guys for joining us, and next week, I promise we'll talk about, maybe by that time they'll figure out what the Redskins are going to be now. Yeah. There's some fan who went around trademarking every possible name the Redskins could possibly use just to screw with them and make them pay him. It was awesome. I just shared the CNN story on Facebook. So, yeah. It was awesome that he did this. So that's part of the reason I think why they haven't announced the new name yet. But
you got to make sure you have all that lined up.
Oh, that's perfect. It is so perfect. So yeah. So anyway, hopefully we have Thank you. Hopefully we're on.
Love you, brother.
To talk about it. In the meantime, thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you next time on Under the Dome. Good night, everybody.